So, hello everyone. I'm called at this very challenging time to speak to you, to share what I've come to understand working with crisis. During this last few weeks of self-quarantine, I've taken time to actually be in personal retreat, to take time to simply be, not from a feeling that I have to, but from a feeling of choice, from answering a deeper calling that take this time now to sit and be and see what called to me. And what came was to share this message with everyone. And in many ways to talk a bit about what does it mean to be in a state of crisis. Some of you know who I am. I am Raven. Some people know me as Barbara Raven Lee. I wrote a book called Unbinding the Soul. You can see from here, Awakening Through Crisis and Compassion. And that this was, the title came to me in 1988, 3 years after a crisis shattered my life. And literally the rug was pulled from under me. Everything that I've known about life no longer worked. And it was from that deep place of abyss and feeling this deep loss that this wisdom came to me. So it's detailed in my book, so I will not go into that. However, it got me to truly awaken and understand how to truly ride and be with crisis. And after a few days of being in personal retreat, I am called to reach out to share and will also lead a meditation. During this time of crisis, there will be a great deal of chaos, a sense of fear can arise, confusion, worry, a sense of losing control. Because I think as humans, we like to know certainty. We do not like changes. We want to feel that everything is under control. And from that place, and we can build our life, we can then depend on the outside and move on with our life. This corona crisis, it's not an enemy, and it's not something that is saving us. It is simply serving as a vehicle, as perhaps an opportunity. So that takes me to the word crisis. Again, I refer to the book. If any one of you are interested in reading the book, it is available through Amazon and other bookstores. It's called Unbinding the Soul, Awakening Through Crisis and Compassion by Dr. B. Raven Lee. And all proceeds are donated to help education and boarding from elementary to high school for refugee children, for clinics. So what is the word for crisis? You may have been hearing a great deal about this is a time of crisis. Let's see it as an opportunity. And that the word crisis in Chinese means opportunity. So in my book, I clarify actually the error in saying that crisis is an opportunity. On page 6, I speak to how the word crisis, here you will see this word here, crisis, and this is opportunity. It has a similar character here, which actually means danger. Or vehicle, sorry, this is danger, vehicle. This is a vehicle. So when we meet the vehicle, it becomes an opportunity. Crisis is simply a vehicle filled with danger. So that is a huge difference. So the Chinese character for crisis, as I will read from page 7 of the book, does not directly imply opportunity, but it's a juncture, it's a moment that can reveal a novel outcome, a new outcome. Because in a crisis, it's saying that our old ways of adapting no longer work. Therefore, we cannot meet this challenge. Something is not working. So when we look at this crisis, what is not working? That is what we need to learn from it. And also, it is a challenge to feel as if though we have to now, do this social distancing. I wish to change the word because I believe a word has vibration. It is not so much as social distancing as actually physical distancing. Physically, we have to keep distance so that we do not pass the virus. But this is actually a time to enhance social connection at a distance. And this is what quantum physics says is truly possible. That all of these waves of connection is at a distance. That the moment we set the intention, not even using Zoom or internet, the moment we think of someone with good thoughts or challenging thoughts, we are creating that wave. So I'm suggesting that instead of seeing this as social distancing, to see that the virus is like a reflection to the universe is saying to us, we can't breathe. The virus is coming out of this space clogged with this toxic energy that affects our human lungs. Literally, our earth is saying we can't breathe. And our human body is saying we can't breathe. And isn't it interesting too, that because we have to physically distance, environmentally it's better. There are pictures from Nepal, India, everywhere that has pollution in China, and now it's clear sky. Have you noticed the breath is fresher? The sky is clearer. As if though Mother Earth is saying to us, we are choking and we need to take a pause. Please, humans, we're so sorry, but you have to take a break from choking us. They are not trying to choke us, but they are really kind of like getting us to awaken. So that's what a crisis is. It's a dangerous moment. The second word of the Chinese character signifies this vehicle, a juncture, a moment where we can use this to move towards discovering, to learn. So that word danger is about describing existing on an edge of a precipice. We are on this edge. The juncture indicates that one's decision and action at this particular moment will determine the outcome. So crisis actually means is a vehicle for our growth or for our devastation. So we have a choice here. So I'm called to make this presentation and sharing to really say that instead of going into our fear, instead of feeling like, oh, we are locked down, we have to. The moment we say we have to, we feel like we have no choice, or we lament the loss. So much of our leaders, or government, or people saying, oh, we can't afford the economy, So there is more of this sense of fear of financial loss, rather than that the loss of lives, of our health, is so pivotal. So this crisis is cracking open what is already, not working. So if we can ride this crisis and use this as a juncture towards our growth, we can then shift. And as chaos theory also have informed us, that complex organisms, such as us humans, we develop through a process of adaptation and integration. Although we are all biologically hardwired to adapt to change, We are not all equipped with the same tools. Some of us are resilient, adaptable, while others will resist changing. So resilience is a key aspect to embracing this expanded awareness, to shift our view, our perception regarding this challenging time. Instead of seeing it as from a place of victim, from fear, can we come together to discover this part of us humans that is filled with strength, with courage, with collaboration, and to bring the light to that part of us that can be filled with greed, filled with divisiveness. So this is asking us to awaken. So that is the subtitle of the book, Unbinding the Soul, which is unbinding the light of who we truly are. That through crisis, something within us can shift when we can go deeper instead of being identified and captured by our fear. We can awaken through this crisis, but only when we can also harness the power of compassion. Compassion does not mean condonment. Compassion is about suffering with someone and alleviating the person's suffering. There's a sense of action. But compassion without wisdom is like a bird with only one wing. We will be burnt out. We cannot take flight. So we need the two wings of wisdom and compassion. The wisdom arises that within each of us, when we're not caught in our identity, in our fear, in feeling a lack, in our worry, when we can be in this beingness, there is more clarity. There's more of a sense of connection. When we can let the mud of our fears, of our impulses to relax, or our disconnect, when we let that rest, when we keep letting that rest, naturally, that compassion can arise. We can then simply sit with, what can we do? How can we show up? Some of you also have been studying or learning from me and have also listened to how beginning of this year, I also recorded a teaching regarding the planetary shift and paradigm shift of 2020. Little did I know about this pandemic that was going to happen. For about 8 years, I have sensed that 2020 was going to be an intense year of shift, that old structure will die off. Patriarchy, greed, and how we have abused power, inequality, injustice will begin to show its crack. I had no idea that it was going to come out in this way. But in some ways, I also know that in order for us to shift to another higher order, that is according to chaos theory of science, we do go through this challenge, this shadow. It is not a regression, rather that we are being shifted to another level and that we are going through this swirling of this chaos and allowing the shadow of the base nature, of the instinctual nature, those primal part of us that can go into fear, that can go into feeling threatened, and I and you are my enemy, all of that can come up. And at the same time, it will also ignite the greater part, the higher aspect of our humanness. So my book, Unbinding the Soul, detailed the science aspect of how we are indeed hardwired. We are called to biologically evolve through these crises, through our shadow, and that our survival nature will always get us to scan what is good, what is not good. And that when we are able to quiet, especially through meditation, through reflection, through listening to something bigger than this fear part of us. That aspect of our humanness emerges from what science has now shown us is more of a higher cognitive functioning within our mind, body, and brain. That instead of just simply reacting from our emotional brain that we share with the mammals, the mammalian brain, is always into survival, we can flip our lids and going into panic. But unlike animals, we're not able to then bring it down and realize, oh, danger's over. We can now relax. For many of us, we have been operated on this survival mode. There are so many survival guides regarding this crisis. I am suggesting that let's go beyond survival. Let's move towards flourishing, towards bringing understanding through compassion, cultivating this wiser part in us, this basic goodness within all of us, that we are capable of knowing what is the right action. We all know that deep down. When we let go of feeling like there's danger, this person is bad, let's like push that away. When we let go of that pushing away and we allow, there is a warmth, that empathy, that compassion, that is empathy in action. But that empathy is also about bringing empathy and compassion to us, to ourselves, that we will be caught up in this fear. And how can we awaken? So I am sharing with you in this book, Unbinding the Soul. It's also available through Kindle or the audio. And also I'll be guiding a meditation. And if you go to my website, integrativewisdompath.com, or just Google B. Raven Lee, my website will come up. It will show you a few online courses that I'll be doing. And if you contact me, email me, I will send you a free meditation regarding how do we touch that part in us, that beingness. How can we touch the warmth that can soothe this fear? Besides meditation, I've also been working with trauma and mind and body connection for almost 30 odd years, going into what in the early 90s called psychoneuroimmunology. And it's really about learning how the psyche and the body, when it can come together, can really affect our immune system. So that has been my background and understanding of what will enhance our immune system. And interestingly, with this virus, it will affect those with the more compromised immune system. And if you realize it, is that when we go into our fear, it will reduce our immune system. The moment we go into our fear, we go into our worry, it will shut down our openness, especially in our heart. As you will also learn from many researchers now, and which I detail in my book in chapter 4, this book really brings together science, psychology, and spirituality to help us understand who we are, how we are shaped by our biological, by our lineage, by our personality. And that when we get stuck in our automatic reaction, we keep looping this survival mode. But when we awaken, especially cultivating through meditation, through ability to sit back, create more space, rather than automatically reacting, we can then reflect. We can allow ourselves to choose a different response. It will shift the neural pathways of our patterns. So take a moment that when we have our immune system compromised, we will be more susceptible to whatever happens. So it's not so much that we have to fight the virus. It is really about a message to say to us, how are you not taking care of yourself? How are we not taking care of others? Because others are inseparable from us. The homelessness, those who are living from paycheck to paycheck, the inequality in our system, healthcare. Abraham Maslow talked a lot about the basic needs that need to be there. I feel as if though this crisis is showing us that if our basic needs were there, if we have good medical system, if everyone living from paycheck to paycheck recognize that, oh, there's going to be sick leave, we can apply for more childcare help, or we can apply for food stamps or whatever it is, they are not going to be in such panic. They will feel that they're going to be taken care of. Because ultimately, in order to shift from survival to flourishing, we have to shift from this part of us that is locked in this fear. We have to feel that we can soothe this part of us that feels we're constantly being locked in this danger mode. But when we feel that our government, our community can support us, we can relax. This is the key now. So I'm asking you to go in to say, at this moment, how is this fear living in me? Does this fear have a belief system or a story? Like I'm going to lose everything? No one will support me? Instead of diminishing the suffering, we're not diminishing it. We are saying that, yes, there are so many things we have no control. However, when we identify with the fear, when we identify with fearing and being out of control, we are not able to respond from this clearer, higher place of awareness. When all of us can answer this calling, instead of seeing it as this lockdown, shut down, it's that universally we're being asked to take this time to actually go into an inner retreat. I know that for me as a practitioner, this has not been so much of a challenge, but I remember when 30 some years ago, in my early 30s, with not too much experiences, being thrown in the crisis as a widow, young mother of two, straddling work, fearing very much like this. How am I going to pay my bills? What's going to happen? And going through this crack of trauma, wondering, how am I going to survive? So I understand this panic. I understand the despair. And in that moment of that despair, I was blessed to have this opportunity to go deeper and touch a deeper part in me that helped me see my crisis and became a vehicle for my change. And because of that, I was able to deepen my curiosity to discover what helped me to shift. And thus, 30 years of journey, science, studying biology, returning for my doctorate in mind-body healing, and coming to this place, taking time for long periods of retreats, including 7 weeks in total darkness alone. But realize that when we are facing our fears, when we can connect to a deeper part of us, that fearful part can actually find a place to relax. So it is not about going outside. Yes, we need social connection. We need to feel the support, but that social connection and support is perhaps a doorway to take us deeper, to realize that deep within us, our awareness can either go into this fear place, into the external, or go deeper within us to discover this part of beingness. And in this place, a clarity will arise. A wiser part of us can emerge to help us make choices as to what action, what decision would best serve us. I would also like to share with you, also from the Western perspective, the root of the word crisis is derived from the Greek word krisis or krinin, which means to separate and decide, and also the Latin word for judgment. This is from page 7 of the book. The Webster's Dictionary defines crisis as a crucial or decisive point or situation, a turning point, an emotionally stressful event or traumatic change in a person's life. So when I bring the Eastern and Western perspective together, crisis can now be seen and defined as this very emotionally stressful, traumatic point in one's life, requiring decisive action and judgment that will determine the outcome. So now, how can we show up? Earlier this year, we talked about this planetary shift. It's calling us to show up, to mature. Old structures will die off, helping us to see ways that we have abused power. So crisis is helping us to awaken, but we cannot awaken without a sense of expanded awareness, a recognition that there is something bigger in us that can guide us. Deep within us, when we are not lost in our fear, when we can simply sit, especially in our heart, we can touch that part. In that stillness, there's a sense of clarity. So there are 2 ways now. First, to recognize, to find meditation practice, find moment of clarity, remembrance of this part of you that is intuitive, grounded. Discover ways to keep accessing that. And also discover ways that we can bring balance. I'm also a certified fellow in energy psychology, and I truly believe that when our body is filled with a lot of stress, it will affect our awareness. And I recommend people to visit the website of ASAP, at the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology. And I think it's energypsych.org and /resilience. So I belong also to the ASAP Humanitarian Committee, and the active members of the community has put together this amazing brochure and video, regarding resilience. So part of this is about discovering our innate resilience through not being lost in our fear. So there are certain ways called tapping. It is very much related to acupuncture, acupressure, where that when anxiety comes, literally it will take us over. But certain points in us, like for example, just tapping here below our collar and breathing and just naming anxiety. As we breathe into it, we can allow as if though those currents of anxious energy can now release. Or perhaps just tapping or soothing. All of these techniques are in that energypsych.org, and especially in the Humanitarian Committee of Resilience. We do need tools and practices, breathing practices, that help us to get back into a set point so we are not going into this entangled energy of anxiety, so that we are looping into our survival mode rather than allowing us to rest. So that's the first point, is connecting, recognizing that our anxiety is not solid. As part of our human condition, we will sense the fear of others, or we will sense the energy within us. But instead of identifying with it, being caught up by it, there are ways in meditation that we can go deeper now. Going beyond survival, we can now shift and connect and integrate this wiser part in us, that we can thrive in this chaos. We can ride the waves of the chaos rather than being swept, and learning how to be with it. For those of you who know that when you are caught in a current, if you keep struggling with it, you're going to get swept. How do you relax and find the current? That is what I mean about going beyond survival. The moment we think of survival, it is about, oh, I'm fighting for my life and death. But when we realize that we are learning to relax and discover our innate beingness, then we can go into a rhythm, just like finding the current. And as we relax, the current will take us back into the land. So when we are working with the chaos, with the waves of our chaos, we recognize that, oh, here is chaos, here's fear. I can now take a deep breath. I can use some tapping to allow the waves, and so that I can listen to the inner rhythm rather than to the chaos rhythm. How can I breathe into my heart? How can I discover and listen to what I truly need that nourishes me? So point A, first part, connect to this awareness that you indeed have this wiser part, this beingness. Your fears are not who you truly are, but these are patterns of survival. You are indeed learning to use this crisis as a vehicle to move from the survival mode into thriving, into waking up, learning how to be with the waves of chaos, to shift to a higher order, and to take that breath, to allow that breath. As you take that breath, and as you then get swept into the wave, you feel that, oh, I can breathe in my wave. I am no longer drowning. So now you know you can now go into the awareness, take that breath, feel that compassion for our human condition of our suffering. Not going into action, but taking time. And then we can name our fear. We can keep deepening the breath. We can tap to discharge the energy. You have resources That's the key, most important thing, to realize we have resources. Resources that deep within us, we have that wiser part. We have our community. We do have tools, and we do want to find the true information, the facts that we need. We definitely have to keep our personal physical hygiene, but most important is to shift our emotional well-being. To know that we are not going into isolation. We're going into physical distancing, but we are being called to enhance our social connection. Quantum physics call this distance, at a distance, action at a distance. When on a deeper level, the atoms are connected, it doesn't matter how far we are, we feel that connection. I sense as if though this virus is shaking us up. I have deep compassion and sadness for those who have suffered losses, going through uncertainty. And that may we as a community awaken to how we need to rise up to help those who need the help and the support. How we can show up to help one another. Only when we are aware of something, then the healing can happen. Without awareness, change will not happen. So we can just become blind with this crisis and just hope that after this is over, we just return to normal. Crisis is not about returning to normal. When we are able to use crisis as a vehicle for growth, we are able to use that crisis as a vehicle to shift, able to go back to say, what didn't work? And how can we now shift? How can we look back to say, oh, okay, if we have continued funding this pandemic preparation, if we had listened to experts, if we have also put into place basic support program, if we have looked at our homelessness population, when we begin to understand how we have overemphasized consumerism, rather than that it is about this balance, that we can no longer just keep paying people minimum wage, paycheck to paycheck. We have to support a healthier understanding of having this security, safeguard that we can tap into. But the first thing now is how can you tap into this understanding? So before I leave this, my sharing, taking with you now that this time of crisis is truly can become a vehicle. It can only be an opportunity if we meet it. So how are you meeting it? Without judging the fear that will be there. Let go of this feeling that, oh, I shouldn't be in fear. I am a healer, I'm a meditator. It's that the fear will be there. It is how we relate to it. That's what we are being asked to shift into this higher vibration of being without fear, not pushing it away, not drowning in it. We are being called to truly enhance our ability to respond. This is what I call responsibility. To become aware of our true ability to respond to a crisis. How can we show up for ourselves, for our family, for our community in the best way possible for well-being? How can we have appreciation and gratitude instead of feeling like being put upon, that we have no choice? We have a choice at every moment as we awaken. we have a choice. We can choose to respond. That's our responsibility. We can enhance our ability to respond from a place of openness, appreciation, gratitude. How can we be of help? How can we help ourselves first? Self-care, and help others. What can we do that will promote this heart connection at a distance? We are shifting from our survival awareness brain to this more integrated, higher awareness. We are indeed being called. Perhaps we are going through this huge revolution, revolve. There is a revolution. We are being swirled in this huge shift of chaos in order to shift us to a higher order of the evolution of our consciousness. So now take a moment, take a deep breath, and know that every breath, notice where it comes from the space around you. This space is filled with all of our nourishing qualities that can be there. Instead of focusing on the space is filled with all the negative energy, we can set our intention that we now connect through our breath to a sense of spaciousness, and feel the warmth of the breath flowing into our hearts. And as we exhale, we release the tension, our worries, and sit with this beingness. And accompanying this video, there will be an audio practice that will deepen this. I'm deeply honored to be sharing my 30-some years of my journey of awakening, to share with you all how we can ride this crisis as a vehicle so that it becomes truly an opportunity rather than to just go back, to go into this relief to say, woof, we survived that. Let's truly realize we are poised to say, let's not keep thinking we have to just keep surviving. Let's go into flourish, thriving, through our heart connection, through creating a society that is more supportive of everyone. And it's not hierarchical. It is truly welcoming everyone, supporting everyone, creating opportunities for all to flourish and to succeed. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I come to you from my meditation room. I bring you blessing. I recognize that we may be stuck in our fear, but to know that when we can sit with it, when we can bring understanding, like a loving mother who can soothe her fearful child, that soothing is actually what this fear is needing. The fear is simply asking us to say, can you soothe us? Can you assure us that we're going to be safe and okay? We can't keep looking outside for that. We are being called now to go deeper within us, to find that higher vibration, higher consciousness, and also being with others that are also walking this path of awareness, of connection. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti is the word that means peace, the great peace that arises from truly understanding who we truly are, not being identified with our emotions, with our beliefs, but to keep coming back home to our beingness. To know and trust that we will together ride the waves of this chaos. We will take this breath and not drown in our fears. We will emerge victorious and triumphant as we come together. We will reflect and look back to say, what can we learn from this? How can we shift together globally? Blessings to you all.